Well, good morning. As Francis said, I'm John from Jameson and Chief Commercial Officer for the Pernod Ricard Company. In a moment, I'll introduce this distinguished panel a little bit further so that you get to know them. But first, let's set some context. We're here today to talk about a significant issue. As Francis just set the stage, this is an issue that is widespread and becoming even more significant for a variety of reasons. Retail theft is on the rise nationwide, as Francis indicated, and it's really a combination of factors. But really, the first thing to address is it's posing threats to the safety of retailers' employees, to consumers, and to industry representatives that are working in the retailer environment. Second, it's also causing a significant material cost for retailers. The surge in retail theft has been identified as a significant financial burden. It's creating material shrink and loss costs, and prompting retailers to take measures to mitigate these losses and ensure a safer shopping environment for all stakeholders. Retailers are responding. They're adapting various strategies in response to retail theft incidents. Some of the examples include age-old ones like bottle anti-theft devices, implementing security measures directly onto the bottle, armed guards, as you saw in that photo just moments ago on the screen, hiring armed security personnel to enhance the safety of the retail space. Inventory placement. Inventory for spirits is moving behind the counter or into locked boxes at an accelerated pace. And those are not accessible areas when they're behind the counter or in locked boxes, and many times requiring associate assistance for consumers to gain access. And as you'll hear momentarily from our panelists today, there are even more new ideas and thoughts for how we solve this. Unfortunately, these responses have had an adverse effect on consumer access to spirits, mainly due to locked shelving and the reduction of display activity on the perimeter. The added security measures and the need to get staff assistance to obtain product access to locked areas has created barriers that inconvenience consumers during their shopping experience. Restricting consumers' physical access to spirits compromises and disadvantages spirits access, especially in comparison to beer and some wines. The impact on volume and growth, the retailer responses, while aimed at reducing theft, have unfortunately unintentionally impacted volume and growth for us in the spirits industry. So we recognize that this is a complex issue, as Francis said. There's a clear need for collaboration across all three tiers of the industry: producers, distributors, and retailers. Working together is essential to develop comprehensive solutions that address safety concerns, restore consumer access to spirits, and promote the overall health and performance of the spirits alcohol category. And that is why we're here today. So I'd like to take a moment in this opportunity to introduce our distinguished panel. First, Natalie Shield is a principal at Kearney, a leading global management consulting firm with 15 years of consulting and industry experience focused on consumer-facing companies. She is an expert in large-scale operating model transformations for CPGs and retailers. She has experience with store operations, field leadership, talent strategy, frontline workforce planning, organization redesign, and driving organizational change. Natalie recently led Kearney's global market scan on retail loss prevention, reflecting best practices from 50 major retailers across 8 countries, identifying opportunities to tailor solutions to individual store and product category needs, and pushing for innovative approaches that enhance customer experience while balancing operational impacts for CPGs and retailers. Welcome, Natalie.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Chris Harris from the Kroger Company. Chris has nearly 25 years' experience in the asset protection and safety industry. He's currently the Director of Asset Protection and Safety for the Kroger Company, where he's responsible for managing the shrink and safety operations in both retail stores and their supply chain. Chris is also the enterprise leader for DSD, scan-based trading, and reclamation operations. Throughout Chris's career, he has worked in several specialized roles such as safety and risk management, regulatory compliance, and enterprise risk management. He's an active participant in the asset protection industry and is committed to growing and improving asset protection. He is a member of the FMI Asset Protection Council and currently serves as the vice chairman. Thank you for being here with us, Chris.
Thanks, John.
Next up, David Spohr is an accomplished professional with an extensive career in the grocery and adult beverage industries. Currently, he's serving as the Senior Director for Alcohol at Albertson's Companies. He collaborates with ACI senior leadership, merchants from Albertson's 20-plus banners, CPG supplier teams with wine, spirit, and beer distributors to earn ACI customers for life by bringing people together around the joys of food and inspiring well-being. A lifelong student of the industry, David has completed the Cornell Food Executive and the USC Industry Management programs and served on the ACI Shrink Task Force tasked with balancing shrink reduction efforts with providing best-in-class shopper experience at ACI's 2,000-plus stores that are licensed to sell alcoholic drinks. Welcome, David.
Thanks.
So, enough from me. Let's get to our distinguished panel. So, to Natalie, can you provide insights into the broader trends and factors that are contributing to the increase in retail theft and how these trends are impacting the industry at a strategic level?
Yeah, absolutely, John. And thank you. Good morning, everyone. As you mentioned off the top, this is a growing problem, and we're really seeing it across all retail channels, all product categories, and indeed globally. And if we start in the States here, the size of the retail theft challenge has doubled since 2018. So it's over a $110 billion problem today, and about a third of that is attributed to external theft. It's clearly multifactorial, right? Lots of reasons for that increase, but one of the major ones that's being pointed to is macroeconomics, right? Inflation impacting consumers' pocketbooks, but also creating ripe conditions for organized crime. And when I say that we're seeing this across all product categories and channels, it really is widespread. So beyond alcohol, from a category standpoint, it's everything that you might imagine around premium fragrances and beauty and apparel, but also things like baby formula, and we were talking before, socks, right? Kind of unusual categories that you wouldn't imagine, and really across retail channels. So again, all the mass merchants, grocers, apparel, but also the dollar channel, right? So much more widespread than you might initially imagine. And from a global standpoint too, in doing that global market scan that John, you mentioned, we anticipated we would see lots of differences across countries, right? We were sort of surprised that we didn't. We saw many more similarities than differences, both in terms of the challenge, the magnitude of the challenge, and then also some of the solutions that retailers globally are implementing. And indeed, I was having a conversation last week with a European, French-based mass merchant, and they were lamenting the fact that their shrink number is about 5% of sales, and they were saying this is outlandish. This must just be us, right? Indeed, no. Many of my U.S. clients are seeing similar numbers as well, and so it's really a pervasive problem.
So global issue, very similar.
Yep.
And the magnitude of it is quite similar as well.
That's right.
Well, thank you.
Right.
Thank you, Natalie. We'll hear from you again. So next to Chris, as the Director of Asset Protection and Safety at Kroger, can you share the specific challenges and instances that Kroger has faced in addressing retail theft and how these challenges are shaping the overall approach to security in your retail spaces?
Yeah, thanks, John. I think Natalie did some really great work in that space. So what you're saying globally, you're seeing is absolutely what we're seeing at Kroger and throughout the industry. To put it lightly, retail theft is on the rise. I believe that a lot of that is because the online marketplace makes it very easy to convert stolen goods to cash. Couple that with the extreme nature of violence that we're seeing today in retail crime, it just adds to the complexity of the problem. If you talk to any associates out there that are working in stores, they can give you examples of being threatened, spit on, assaulted, all because these retail criminals want that product and they're trying to do what they think is right and prevent it. So I can say that the retail industry certainly is aware of what's happening with this, and I think that's why you're seeing maybe a more preventative approach to solutions versus a reactive approach. And the preventative approach, unfortunately, can have a negative customer connotation because it does create friction, an additional friction for that customer. But that's really where the industry's going, to be more preventative.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chris. Yeah. So next to David. As the Senior Director of Merchandising at Albertsons, how do you navigate that balance between implementing security measures to prevent theft and ensuring a positive and as accessible as possible shopping experience for consumers?
Yeah, terrific question. We struggle with it all the time. First, I'd like to just thank WSA and everybody for showing up this morning. Usually we think about this as, a third-tier problem and not the other tiers in the industry. So it's awesome that everybody's here to give us your ear for a few minutes, hear about this issue, and it is a big deal for all of us, and we're kind of on the front line of it, so glad we're having this conversation. For us, the balance word's been used probably 5 times already in this conversation, and it is. It's trying to, balance out the need to sell products and make customers happy with the need to, produce a profit and make money. We're all for-profit, businesses here. So at Albertsons, we're always customer-centric. We're customer first. We want to make our stores fun, exciting. We want to build big displays, cross-merchandise with other categories, do cocktail solutions, all that fun stuff that makes product accessible, upfront, visible, all those things. But everything we do to do that for our best shoppers also makes those products at risk to the bad actors out there. So the balance comes in. I think about sales as offense, if we're thinking like next week's big game, and theft deterrent as defense. And offense is more fun, but at some point we have to start playing defense when the numbers dictate that, and that means pulling some of those displays off the floor, reducing some of that interdepartmental cooperation. We sometimes take a bunch of categories that don't make sense to be merchandised together, stick them in a corner of a store and make that a store within a store, and you have to come through a special register. And I don't know, tequila and Tide, I don't know if that's on everybody's shopping list every day, but those are the items you'll find together in that section. And then ultimately, if it's really bad, we put it behind glass, we lock it up, and so you have to have somebody to intervene to actually get access to the product. So I'll say we try and balance it out store specifically. There's not a one-size-fits-all. We're going to do this, and that fixes it. And everything we do is just sort of a Band-Aid, and the real issue is trying to get at the reasons for this high theft, and that's a much bigger issue, and I'm sure we'll get into those topics as we keep talking here.
Yeah, and I think it's why WSWA has us up on stage today, going from some of what you describe as reaction, how can we collaborate across these 3 tiers and be more proactive? I think you said it well. You said it really is about balance. And as access gets restricted to consumers, that is having an impact, in terms of meeting consumers' wants and needs. There's oftentimes a preference for spirits for their moments of conviviality, and in addition, has an impact on basket size or your offense, and also profitability. So thank you for those thoughts, and I think we will continue to dive further into balance and how do we solve this together. So let's just reflect a little bit more on this. So I'm going to come back to you, Natalie, and get your thoughts here. How have security measures implemented by retailers that you've observed across this study, affected the overall consumer experience, as we're discussing here? And are there innovative strategies or technologies, that you've observed or that are being explored to maintain security and reduce theft, and make sure we're not compromising that consumer experience? So it's a tall order, but we live in a different world than 1 year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and the pace of technology, and with us working together, there must be some green shoots in terms of some areas that you observed. Yeah, absolutely. We've done some consumer research around sort of, I'll call it the worst case scenario, right? When product is locked up behind glass. And interestingly, most consumers are pretty
aware of locked up product, right? About 80% of them, when they're surveyed, say, yep, I've encountered locked up product recently. I think the interesting thing is, on the flip side, less than half of them feel familiar with it, feel like they know what to do. And I think if anyone's been in a grocery store or retailer recently and watched someone try to open a locked cabinet thinking it's just a displayer, right? I know I've witnessed this, I'm sure my panelists have too. You see where that added consumer friction comes in, sort of unintentionally. And it's sort of no wonder that consumers struggle so much with locked product, right? Across all of those product categories I mentioned before, different anti-theft devices are being used, and so it's no wonder consumers get so confused. I think the risk, that we're all alluding to is, to purchase intent. So in those same consumer surveys, up to 30% of consumers will just abandon their trip entirely or abandon their purchase entirely when faced with locked up product. And obviously that depends, if the purchase is, more discretionary or not. If you need baby formula to feed your baby, you're probably going to stick it out and find the store associate and do what you need to do. But categories like alcohol, like cosmetics, like fragrances, those are the ones where consumers are potentially more easily deterred. So certainly, we can get into different solutions, right, that don't involve locking up, but I'd say that's sort of the snapshot of the consumer experience on that end of the spectrum.
Wow. And so, Natalie, 30% was across all categories observed in the study?
That's right, and highest in those most discretionary ones.
Aside from 30% walking away, did the study include switching? Certainly
Yes.
Within total beverage alcohol, there are
Yes.
choices, and there isn't the same level of friction or restriction. So was that observed in the study as well?
That's right. Smaller numbers of consumers, sort of in the 15 to 20% range, will opt for other options, right? Whether it's a product that's not locked up, whether it's going online, maybe picking up their phone in the store and just ordering online instead, visiting a different store entirely. But again, each of those added friction points, unless it's really seamless in store, can impact sales.
Let's maybe come back to that point around the rise of e-commerce specific to this issue. I want to go to you next, Chris, and get your thoughts on this. And in particular, I know you probably have been working on some innovative strategies and new emerging technologies that you can weigh in here.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you from a consumer perspective, I get frustrated too. I happen to have a nice bourbon collection in my house, and I do not want the top of my bottle to be ripped a little bit from the bottle tops. I do not want a big Kroger sticker on the front of my nice bottle there that says property of Kroger. So I get it. So we are looking for more innovative solutions that don't create that friction. We have solutions out in most of our stores, if not all of them right now, with cart containment systems. So if somebody, we'll call them a bad actor, loads up a cart full of product and then attempts to push it out of the store without first going through the register, the system knows that and locks the wheels and alarms and then calls an associate over to address the situation. So literally they just are stopped in their tracks with this cart because it didn't go through the point of sale. We're also using what you would call AI computer vision cameras on our point of sale. And they are monitoring a number of different transactions so they can see if product is going in the bag without being scanned. They can see if it's left in the cart. And they can also see if a lower dollar item, an old product switch or ticket switch, is being rung up for a higher price product. So the camera knows what the product looks like, and it can identify that, and it can stop the transaction and call an associate over to intervene. And there's even some next generation tech that we're looking at today that can monitor specific aisles where the camera looks down the aisle, and it can watch the mannerisms of the shopper. And if you picture almost like a heat camera, it can see if those mannerisms are in a theft manner. So it can see if you look like you're maybe putting something in that bag. And it catches that movement. And then it alerts the cashier at the front that you may have an issue at aisle 7, or it could do a security page, or it could do a customer assistance page. So there is technology we're looking at to try and get reduced friction and still be able to protect the product.
Yeah, those are some exciting technologies for sure. I've observed the one you just referenced with the theft motions, and I'm sure that we'll probably come back to talking about actually the choice to intervene or not intervene as some of these technologies make you more aware in the environment of a potential theft. So, but let's go to David. David, you must have some additional thoughts here on emerging technologies and approaches for Albertsons as well.
Yeah, there are so many choices out there, and again, trying to make it fun and easy and frictionless to buy products in our store. I mean, there's a non-tech one, which is just people, right? Just having people in the aisle, making eye contact, asking them if they need help. I'll say that's less effective than it used to be once upon a time, because some of the ORC people aren't super intimidated by that. But the more people that are in the store, I think the better we can control this. So whether it's our people, your salespeople, the supplier salespeople out in store, eyes on product, the more of that we can get, I think the better. Technologically, you mentioned e-com. There are ways that customers can pre-order these difficult to get in-store categories. They're learning, everybody's kind of evolving, and our shoppers are pretty smart, and they figure out the path of least resistance to get their products. So maybe they utilize our buy online, pick up in-store services so after a couple of maybe not great experiences waiting for somebody to open a case. The scary thing is, some folks will just do what Natalie mentioned, and they'll find other places to buy this stuff. Luckily, liquor's not as easy to go direct to consumer, like razor blades and things like that. So we still have the 3 tiers, and it's heavy and it's expensive. Drizzly would still be in business if liquor delivery was a really great business. So for us, it's really just about finding, again, the things that work for the shoppers and deter the bad guys.
And let's come back to this point around e-commerce. Are you seeing an increase in e-commerce incidents in these locked up stores? And I know there's several over the last months or even years that have become recent locked up stores. Did you see a rise in e-commerce incidents into those stores for spirits products in particular?
Yeah, I don't know that we've looked at it quite that granularly, but there's an opportunity there for sure. Because again, you say spirits, it's beer, it's wine, it's Tide laundry detergent, it's baby formula. It's not a spirit-specific issue. It's a store-wide issue that affects so many categories. And you think about a basket and somebody coming to shop, stop the laundry aisle, wait for somebody. Stop in the liquor aisle, wait for somebody. Stop in the toothpaste aisle and wait for somebody. It's just not a great experience. So I feel like customers will figure that out.
Yeah, and let's not forget the sock aisle, Natalie. Chris, anything to add on the e-commerce side?
No, I think it's a new space for liquor-specific spirits. So I don't know that we know enough about it yet to see the impact.
Yeah, okay.
I did want to share one sort of maybe controversial, thought, but locking product up or some of these theft deterrent can actually help us sell more. And I think, if you go into a store and we've decided because of theft, we're going to do one to show, one to go. So there's 2 bottles on the shelf, right? Somebody buys one, somebody steals. Either way, there's just not much product to choose from. If we can secure that product either through store within a store, methods, or locking it up, you get an initial dip, but then it comes back because people say, at least there's product there to buy. So, we don't want to do that. Again, we like to play offense. We're not looking to play defense, but there is a scenario where these theft deterrent systems actually increase access and increase sales. It's just a journey. It's just not instantaneous.
Yeah.
Sure.
If I can build on that, I've seen that too in other categories. Premium fragrance being one of them, right? When that product is locked up, I've had a retail client where their sales actually increased because the product was finally available to purchase. Now, granted, they did that really intentionally, and they added beauty advisors to be able to access the product and help consumers, and so it was done really intentionally. But absolutely, I think when done with intention, or when consumers sort of start to get used to what it looks like to interact with locked up product, there can be benefits there.
Certainly makes it incumbent upon the supplier tier to make sure that there's strong brands with strong top-of-mind awareness so that that thought on what they're coming in to shop is on their mind. So let's talk now about collaboration across the tiers before we go to some closing thoughts. So recognizing, the need for collaboration across all three tiers of the industry per the conversation that we've had, how can producers, distributors, and retailers work together to address the root causes of retail theft and develop some comprehensive solutions? So what is our path forward? David, let's start with you and get your thoughts on how we really bring this three-tier collaboration to life.
Yeah, no, I love this question because it's how do we all get skin in the game, right? And let's just say the regulatory environment makes it less easy for us to collaborate in this space than it is for us with our regular non-alcoholic CPG suppliers. But I would say, transparency in the supply chain and accountability for the retail establishments, be it on-premise or off-premise, that have inventory that they didn't buy from you through the three-tier system. You see that out there. You go into an account, they've got X inventory, you don't show you ever shipped it to them. I mean, the more we can identify those players, because it's so easy, you mentioned it earlier, it's so easy to monetize this product these days. That's where we've got to squelch the demand, because if you can just load up a cart, walk across the street, and sell it to somebody for cash, and that person has no downside, there's no, if we start pulling licenses, we start getting those people sort of identified, I think that would go the longest way towards doing that. And how can we do that? There's technology coming, with the barcodes that where it was made, who shipped it to where, what store received it. But maybe we need some low-tech solutions. Just like you said, you don't want to see a Kroger sticker on your bottle, but I would like to be able to identify my product in other retailer stores and then be able to help solve the demand issue.
Yeah, what you raised, there's clearly an opportunity for us as a three-tier system to impact regulatory and make sure that there's, not only the right access, but also accountability. So great point. Chris, let's go to you on this topic.
Yeah, so we, I think you nailed it, David. How we come together and how we influence the lawmakers, I think, is going to be key in this space. We can and we will continue to chase the individuals in the stores that are causing the losses, but the big heavy lift is through regulation. And in 2023, I think, was a fairly good year for ORC regulation, organized retail crime, both at state and local level. But also federal level. So some of you may know the Inform Act, and the Inform Act really helps go after the online marketplace sale of stolen goods, and it requires sellers to provide personal information at different thresholds, and that's really to get rid of the anonymity that they hide behind with the online marketplace. So to me, that is the absolute key to how we go forward with this.
Okay. Natalie?
Yeah, I'll just give an example from a different industry, food for thought, right? And an example where kind of what's possible when the full supply chain or the full value chain is either owned together or working together in your case, right? Some of you might be familiar with Uniqlo. They're an apparel company. They own their whole supply chain, so recognize that's a different situation. But every single one of their SKUs has an RFID tag on it. Clearly, that's tremendous from an inventory management standpoint for them, right? But also, there's this knock-on benefit to theft and being able to reduce theft. So their self-checkout, if you've ever used it, you don't scan your own items. Literally, just drop all your items into a bin. The self-checkout machine, calculates how much you're owed. You pay, you leave. So it's easy on employees, easy on store operations. Easy for the consumer, great from an inventory management standpoint, but also that theft reduction both at self-checkout and upon walking out of store, right? Clearly does not solve everything, but just one example, kind of food for thought of what is possible when different levels collaborate.
Fantastic. It's been great to start this conversation today. This truly is a start across the three tiers. We're coming close on time, but I did want to go back to each of the panelists. Any quick closing thoughts? David?
Yeah, again, thanks for everybody being here. Appreciate the forum to have the conversation. We want to sell stuff, so anything we can do together to figure out how to make it profitable for all 3 tiers, we're all for it. So glad we had this conversation.
David. Yeah. And then to Chris.
Well, I'll say this is the first step in getting to where we want to be, to that common goal. So I appreciated all those laws that we were just talking about formed from discussions like this and got involved in their local judicial system. So this is the first step, I think, in getting to the root of this problem.
Agreed. Thank you. Chris, Natalie?
Love it. I would just add, the more of these sort of collaborative conversations you can have, I think the more innovative solutions you'll get to. The super innovative solution doesn't yet exist, but I think all of you working together, you'll be able to come up with ones that are good for your business, good for your product, consumers, retailers. That's the real opportunity in my mind.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think as we start the conversation today, certainly we'll come back and continue this dialogue across all 3 tiers, engaging with WSWA, with Discus, and with retailers. And certainly there's work to be done here from conversation, not only amongst the 3 of us, but with regulatory level as well. So thank you very much for joining us today. Appreciate your participation and your preparation. Really good conversation. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.